So for clubs, the playoffs are a pretty hectic time. They're stressful because you've got to try and do the best that you can to try and get promoted. And you know you've pretty much just got one chance. You've worked for the entire season, ended up in the playoffs, and you have to do all you can to try and get up to a higher level. And it doesn't help when there are things that are totally out of your hand that are really causing a negative impact on your chances in the playoffs. And that's exactly what's happened in the 7th tier, in more specifically the Southern League Premier Division Central. Matches in the playoffs of this league have been arranged a total of 6 different times, which is so difficult for teams to have to deal with. You have no security in terms of knowing when your match is taking place, and literally just 24, 48 hours before a match is due to take place, it's then changed and moved forward or moved back. It's been an absolute nightmare for the 4 clubs in the playoffs. They are Kings Lynn Town, Stourbridge, Alvechurch and Stratford Town. We'll be looking into the whole situation in this video, but first of all, this video is sponsored by One Football, which is great to stay up to date with the news during the off season ahead of the new season. The news section of the app is great to stay up to date with all the latest news, managerial changes, transfers from up and down the pyramid across the world. So if you want to download that app, the link is going to be in the top line of the description. But anyway, all these problems with the Southern League Division Central playoffs, they all arise due to Stratford Town fielding an ineligible player. Reportedly, this dates back to February, so it's strange that it is now only been brought to light. Allegations were only actually presented on the 29th of April. Now, this was actually before the playoffs are due to start on the 1st of April. So literally a couple of days before the playoffs, this is all thrown in there and Stratford are in trouble. So as part of the FA's investigations into this ineligible player, they demanded that they had the information by lunchtime on the 30th of April because they wanted to investigate this as quickly as they possibly could so they could choose the correct punishment, if necessary, as soon as they could. And this could massively impact who was actually playing in the playoffs. So in this league, there are only 4 playoff places, unlike the 5th and 6th tier this season and last season where there have been 6 playoff places. There are only 4 in the 7th tier currently. So the final of these playoff places in the Southern League Central, the 5th position was taken up by Stratford Town, and they were 5 points ahead of 6th place Colville. So if they were to have a points deduction due to this ineligible player, then it could see them drop below Colville, and that would mean that Colville will be in the playoffs. This is why they had to postpone the playoffs initially. So just to clear up the actual playoff structure, as I said, it was just a structure with 4 teams, but it is slightly different. There is the super playoffs. What this means is there'll be a semi-final, so that was 2nd versus 5th and 3rd versus 4th. They will play 1 game at the home of the team that is placed highest in the table. Then this will then see these teams go through to the final of the playoffs where they will play against the other semi-final winner. And normally this would mean that playoff final winner would get promoted, but that isn't the case this season. You have to then go and play a match against a playoff winner from one of the other leagues. In this case, the Southern League Central winner will play against the Northern Premier League Premier Division winner, and that is called the Super Playoffs. So Super Playoffs is definitely going to happen Saturday the 11th of May regardless. And this is why they had to pack these fixtures in for the playoffs and shift them around to try and decide which was going to be the best one after this initial postponement. So the initial match was going to take place on Wednesday the 1st of May. Now this was with a view to having the playoff final for the Southern League Central on the Saturday, the 4th of May. But they postponed this and moved the match back to Friday, the 3rd of May. And this was because they wanted to allow more time for the investigation to take place into Stratford's ineligible player. Now, out of fairness, they decided to move the Stourbridge versus Alvechurch game, which was the other semi-final, back to Friday, the 3rd of May as well. This was only actually announced on the 30th, so 1 day before the original playoff was actually meant to take place. And obviously with the semi-final taking place on the Friday, it would be a bit unreasonable to expect the teams to play in the playoff final on the following day, the Saturday. So they moved the playoff final to the following Wednesday. Then on Wednesday the 1st of May, the match was actually moved back 24 hours to take place on the Thursday night. So this was Stourbridge v Alvechurch and Kings Lynn versus Stratford. But even at this point, Kings Lynn did not know whether they were going to be playing Stratford or Colville because it still wasn't cleared up and it still wasn't announced. Then later in that day, the 1st of May, the matches were actually moved backwards again, this time to Bank Holiday Monday, the 6th of May. And that was with the final being played still on Wednesday, the 8th. Then fast forward 24 hours on Thursday the 2nd of May, guess what? The match was rearranged again. This time it was rearranged to take place on Sunday the 5th of May. But then this was postponed due to Kings Lynn actually having a 10k run taking place in the town. This would cause a load of roads to be closed and basically just made the game difficult to be staged. So they had to find a new date, which they then moved it to the Saturday, the only day between Wednesday the 1st of May and Monday the 6th of May that hadn't currently had a match scheduled to take place on. So they'd literally had 6 different days. It's just absolutely crazy. And this basically meant, because Stourbridge then couldn't actually play the game on the Saturday, this is because of the cricket taking place on Stourbridge's pitch, because for those who don't know, that Stourbridge FC, they ground share with Stourbridge Cricket Club. The actual football pitch is on the cricket pitch. So they couldn't use the football pitch while there was a cricket match taking place. So they had to find another solution, and this was to move the game to Alvechurch. So Stourbridge surrendered their home advantage. This was on the proviso: if they won the semi-final and got to the final would take place on Bank Holiday Monday the 6th of May. And throughout all of this, Kings Lynn threatened legal action. Stourbridge threatened to pull out of the playoffs at one stage because of the whole situation. This was all caused by Stratford Town, who only ended up getting a 3 points deduction. So ended up 2 points ahead of Colville, so actually remained in the playoffs regardless. So the semi-final matches, Stourbridge actually ended up, after this whole situation, they ended up losing this. 2-1 they lost at Lye Meadow. And Kings Lynn won their playoff semi-final 3-1 against Stratford, which saw them get through to the final. The game taking place at Kings Lynn on Bank Holiday Monday. No hitches with that game. It actually took place as it was, well, not originally scheduled, but scheduled as of the final reschedulement of the semi-finals. And Kings Lynn won that one 3-0 to get through to the Super Playoff final against the winners of the Northern Premier League playoffs. That was Warrington Town. Now, the whole point of rearranging the game initially in the Southern League Central was to basically mean it was fair for both Stourbridge, Alvechurch, and the game between Kings Lynn and whether it would be Stratford or Colville. So those 2 games would be taking place at the same time, so that there would be the same amount of preparation for all 4 teams to get into the playoffs, because they knew that it was a horrible situation and there was so much uncertainty, so it'd be better to have the uncertainty on all the teams so they had the same disadvantage. And this was all going on because they knew they didn't want to have to rearrange the Super Playoffs. This was pretty much set in stone. They were saying all along that this game was not going to be moved. But the Northern Premier League, their playoff semi-finals took place on Tuesday 30th of April, and their final took place on Saturday the 4th. And those dates never changed. They were always how they were going to be. And this has given them not only more preparation compared to the teams in the Southern League Central, it's left them in a lot less of a limbo situation, because they've just got to focus on their own fixtures, knowing when they're going to take place, and it's not really affected them at all, and they've actually ended up positively benefiting from it. So that whole argument of postponing the games due to fairness, while it was the right thing to do at the time, in my opinion, for the Southern League Central, I think it should have been done the same for the Northern Premier League as well, because overall the teams in the Northern Premier League playoffs are taking part in the same overall playoff structure as the ones in the Southern League Central. So you have it, that is it for this video. Do you think that this situation could have been handled differently by the respective leagues? Let me know in the comment section down below, with the playoff semi-finals being mirrored for Kings Lynn v Stratford and Alvechurch v Stourbridge, in terms of moving them to the exact same days throughout and moving things around, making sure that there was a day that could suit all of the teams. Do you think this should have been changed in the Northern Premier League as well, to make sure that there was the same fairness as what they stated when they first rearranged the matches? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video, remember to hit the like button and click subscribe as well. We'll be having loads of different videos from non-league right throughout the summer, right until next season and through next season as well. So if you want to stay up to date, click that subscribe button down below. And yeah, I hope to see you in this video, and thanks for watching.